won't matter.
Wow.
Jimmie Johnson slams the wall in Pocono.
Oh my.
Fucking brake failed. Wowzers.
This single crash was responsible for ending an entire era. Jimmie Johnson for so long was NASCAR's top driver, winning his 7th championship just 7 months prior to this incident. But after this crash, Jimmie Johnson never won again. How does one of NASCAR's greatest drivers have such a fall from grace? Well, today, we're going to look back on the day that the Jimmie Johnson era came to an end. Jimmie Johnson started his career at Hendrick Motorsports in the 48 car in 2002, and right away you could tell he was special. Johnson won at Auto Club Speedway in just his 13th start. He would go on to win 2 more races that season, sweeping the Dover races. Then later in that season at Kansas, with Sterling Marlin crashing out and Mark Martin having a bad day, he would become the first rookie to lead the points standings. But in the last 7 races that season, he had 3 finishes outside the top 20 and finished the season 5th in points. Over the 3 seasons following 2002, Johnson recorded 15 wins and finished 2nd in points twice. But all 3 seasons, he came up heartbreakingly short. In 2003, he finished the season with 7 straight top 10s, with 6 of those being top 5s. But the problem was that this late season consistency was just that, late. Johnson finished the season 2nd in points. In 2004, the first year of the chase, Johnson started the chase horribly, having 2 DNFs in the first 4 races. Despite Johnson winning the next 4 out of 6 races, he would come up short, once again finishing 2nd in points. In 2005, Johnson returned to the chase, but this year would be one of missed opportunities. Johnson had the points lead with 5 races left, but in the finale in Homestead, Johnson entered 2nd, 52 points behind leader Tony Stewart. But in the race, Johnson would crash out and finish the season 5th in standings. In 2006, Johnson would be in a tight battle all season long with Matt Kenseth. But to start the chase, Johnson performed terribly, opening the chase with 4 finishes outside the top 10. But Johnson would rebound and finish top 2 in the next 5 races, and this would be enough for him to win his first championship.
Jimmie Johnson in the 48 car, closing in on the championship. Biffle looking for the win. Truex trying to play spoiler up front.
Don't think Truex is going to have enough. Biffle got a really great restart. Too many car lengths.
Biffle going for 3 in a row. Through 3 and 4 for the final time. Coming to the finish line. Greg Biffle goes 3 in a row at Homestead. And Jimmie Johnson is the 2006 NASCAR Nextel Cup Series champion.
And with that, the Johnson era had begun. In the next 4 seasons from 2007 to 2010, Johnson was without a doubt the best driver in the field, winning 30 races and winning the championship every season. In total, from 2006 to 2010, Johnson recorded 35 wins and a 10.7 average finish. Johnson pulled off many historic feats in this time period. He became only the 8th driver in the modern era to win 4 consecutive races, and became the first driver to win 5 consecutive championships, shattering the record of 3 by Cale Yarborough. Johnson was without a doubt the best driver of his generation, and a lot of people thought that his dominance would never end. But eventually, it would have to. In 2011, Johnson regressed. He recorded a career low in wins at 2, and he only had the points lead in the regular season once. But to start the chase, Jimmie Johnson looked like Jimmie Johnson. He had a solid start, finishing in the top 10 3 of the first 4 races and winning at Kansas. Leaving the Kansas race, Johnson was 3rd, just 4 points away from the lead. But crashes in the next 2 races at Charlotte and Talladega derailed his season, and Johnson finished the season 6th in points. The first time in his career that he finished outside the top 5 in points. What a stat. But in 2012, Johnson would bounce back and was in contention for the points lead all season long. Heading into the chase, Johnson was easily one of the favorites. In the first 8 races of the chase, Johnson won 2 races, had 6 top 5s and 7 top 10s, and had a 7-point lead over Brad Keselowski. In the penultimate race of the season at Phoenix, Johnson was running 7th to 15th all day, but late in the race, Johnson's season would come unraveled.
On that car, all after
afternoon long. Keselowski very comfortable. We got a problem with the 48.
48 is into the wall, Vince. Jimmie Johnson has hit the wall.
Go ahead and wheel it around here, buddy. We'll get some new tires on there. We'll take a look at it.
Johnson left the race 20 points behind Keselowski. In the finale at Homestead, Johnson was running in the top 10, but late in the race his pit crew messed up and then he would have a mechanical failure and finish the race 36th and finish 3rd in the standings. In 2013, Johnson would have a return to form. Johnson dominated the regular season, winning 4 races and having the points lead for 25 of the 26 races. In the chase, Johnson was absolutely dominant, recording 2 wins, 7 top 5s, 9 top 10s. This remarkable consistency from him gave him his 6th championship, and people in the industry started asking, can Johnson possibly tie Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt and become the 3rd 7-time champion? But little did anyone know, this was the beginning of the end. In 2014, Johnson started off the season as usual, winning 3 races early in the season and was contending for the points lead with teammates Jeff Gordon and Dale Jr. But Johnson would have a summer slump, having a stretch of races that all resulted in sub-top 25 finishes. When the chase rolled around, Johnson was uncharacteristically inconsistent. He got through the round of 16 quite comfortably, but in the round of 12, Johnson had finishes of 40th, 17th, and 24th, and was eliminated. Despite getting a win at Texas just 2 races after being eliminated, Johnson had an average finish of 20.3 in the last 4 races. In the chase, Johnson had an 18.2 average finish, which was the worst of his career. The season as a whole, Johnson recorded 4 wins, 11 top 5s, which was the worst since his rookie season, 20 top 10s, which tied his career low, and a 15.3 average finish, which was a career low. In 2015, Johnson would bounce back with 4 wins in the regular season, and was hanging around the top 5 in points all year. Heading into the chase, Johnson was considered a favorite. In the opening 2 races, Johnson had finishes of 11th and 6th, and heading into the cutoff race at Dover, he had a 27-point cushion. But at Dover, an early mechanical issue would put him 36 laps down, and Johnson finished the race 41st, eliminating him from the chase. Johnson would pick up his last win of the season at Texas, and Johnson finished the season 10th in points. In 2016, Johnson started hot as usual. In the first 13 races, Johnson recorded 2 wins, 6 top 5s, and 7 top 10s with a 10.6 average finish and was sitting 3rd in points. But in the next 13 races, Johnson only had 1 top 5 and 3 top 10s with a 19.9 average finish. So heading into the chase, everyone viewed him as maybe a round of 8 exit. But in the round of 16, Johnson recorded finishes of 12th, 8th, and 7th. Nothing flashy, but good enough to get into the round of 12. In the round of 12, Johnson won the opening race and advanced to the round of 8. In the opening race of the round of 8, Johnson would run into trouble. He ran out of gas in the race, but Johnson would push through and come back to win the race. Johnson was so emotional just to have a shot at winning the record-tying 7th championship. The next 2 weeks would go on, and then the day of the final race finally came. But Johnson already faced adversity, having to start in the back after an unapproved adjustment. Johnson fought through the field, but it was obvious that he just didn't have the car to compete with the other Final 4 competitors. But late in the race, Dylan Lupton of all drivers would change Johnson's fate.
Kyle Busch won here a year ago to win the championship. The caution will come out. A restart.
And this caution would trigger the next iconic chain of events.
The outside, Carl Edwards on the inside. Green flag back in the air. They're blocking. Good go down low. Carl Edwards into the wall. He got tagged by the 22. Big hits by the 19. And the caution comes back out again. Great restarts by both the 48 and the 22. Kyle Larson drops back to second, but he fights back on the outside. Here comes the 4. Kevin Harvick racing that 22 hard.
Come on, baby. Come on.
Jimmie Johnson out front. They've passed the overtime line.
You know, half a lane higher.
Larson looking to the high side. This time by.
Perfect lap.
White flag in the air. One more time around from Miami. Jimmie Johnson has never won at Homestead Miami Speedway, but he's never been in a position where he's had to win for a championship. Down the backstretch he goes. A half a lap away from the championship. Jimmie Johnson through 3 and 4. Make room. Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. There's another 7-time champ. Jimmie Johnson wins his 7th NASCAR Sprint Cup championship.
You are looking at 7-time champion, Sprint NASCAR champion, Jimmie Johnson.
Just like that, Jimmie Johnson became NASCAR's 3rd 7-time champion. And now people were asking, could he possibly be the driver to reach 8 championships? Heading into 2017, NASCAR made some changes, introducing stage racing and revamping the chase into the modern day playoffs. Jimmie Johnson, in the first 12 races at least, continued to be Jimmie Johnson. He started the season solidly. He won back-to-back races at Texas and Bristol, and then won his 11th Dover race. Through the first 13 races, it was kind of what you expected from Jimmie. 3 wins, 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s, 13.2 average finish, 172 laps led, and was sitting 6th in points. But after Jimmie's Dover win, everyone was high on him being a serious championship contender. But little did anyone know, this would be the last win Jimmie Johnson would ever get. The day was June 11, 2017, under the bright sunny skies in Long Pond, Pennsylvania. Jimmie qualified the Lowe's 48 car in 19th place, and by the end of Stage 1, Johnson had the car in the top 5. In Stage 2, Johnson would be in the 9th to 18th range for the majority of the stage, mainly due to some pit strategy. But late in Stage 2, Johnson's race would take a turn for the worst.
It won't matter. Wow.
Jimmie Johnson slams the wall in Pocono.
Oh, my.
Fucking brake failure. Wowzers.
Running 7th, Johnson with a brake problem, and Jamie McMurray has destroyed the right side of his car.
Yeah,
Whose brakes failed? Was it Jimmie Johnson or was it Jamie McMurray?
I don't know, but I don't know. That's a hard hit, boys. I tell you, that was a big hit for that 48 car.
Jimmie Johnson takes a seat.
That knocked the wind out of Jimmie, Jeff. That was a really super hard leak. Even though that's safer barrier, that got it. That really rung his bell.
Johnson encountered a brake failure, but instead of doing what his teammate Casey Kane did later in the race and put it in the wall and let the wall slow the car down, Johnson attempted to throw it through the grass and try to scrub off as much speed as possible. And what followed was one of the nastiest hits in NASCAR history. Now, Johnson had been on a subtle decline for a while, but after this crash, Johnson was never the same. For the remainder of the regular season, Johnson only recorded 3 top 10s and had 0 top 5s. In the playoffs, he lucked through the round of 8, but his luck would run out and he would be out in the round of 8. Jimmie would record career lows in top 5s, top 10s, laps led, and average finish. Now, some thought that he would bounce back in 2018, but he just didn't. Johnson went winless for the first time in his career, and while making the playoffs, he didn't make it past the first round. At the end of 2018, Johnson's 17-year partnership with Lowe's would end, and so would his relationship with crew chief Chad Knaus. In 2019, Johnson would be paired with Kevin Meendering, and this resulted in an even worse year, where Johnson missed the playoffs for the first time. Going into the 2020 season, there was a lot of speculation about Johnson's future, but on November 20th, 2019, Johnson would officially announce his retirement.
I'm so thankful for 18 incredible years of racing in NASCAR. This sport has been good to me and has allowed me to do something I truly love. I showed up chasing a dream and achieved more than I ever thought possible. I'm looking forward to next season and celebrating what will be my last year as a full-time NASCAR Cup driver.
Down the backstretch he goes. Drag race, Jimmie
this team is capable of, and I hope 2020 is one of the best yet.
Johnson would attempt to make the playoffs in his retirement tour, but despite being around the cut line for the majority of the regular season, he would fail to make the playoffs in his final full-time season. Now, Jimmie Johnson will without a doubt forever be one of the greatest drivers in NASCAR history, but it's sad to see how far he fell in the last seasons of his career. And you can trace it all back to that one fateful day at Pocono Raceway, and the stats prove it. Johnson just had a very sudden fall from grace after this crash. Now remember how I said earlier that his 2013 title was the beginning of the end? Well, the stats prove that. In the previous 7 seasons, Johnson had 43 wins, while in the next 7 he only had 17. And his 2016 championship winning season was the worst statistical season by a champion at the time. Honestly, I believe that Johnson's decline was inevitable, and he was definitely showing signs of slowing down. But in my opinion, the Pocono crash just accelerated his decline. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Also, like and subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and I will see you guys next time for another video. Y'all have a good one.